You may be seated.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Sometimes I get to worship and forget I got to preach. Don't be too excited about me not preaching, Lucky. I have feelings too. So right now is when I should be introducing to you your associate pastor, Brother Rudy Gutta. We celebrated him big time in the first service, but he absolutely said, no, this is the Sunday, we are getting this started, and I've got to be there. So he might come in at the end of the service, and then we're going to give him show him a lot of love when he does. But I want to announce to y'all right now, today is Brother Rudy's 32nd anniversary of serving Christ here at the church at the beach. And it's really cool. So we gave him a big bag of M&Ms. We gave him a gift card with plenty of money on it for he and Sister Sandy to go eat a big, fine, fancy dinner at Craft 850. Nice little card. And there's really no way to express how great he has been to Christ and how great he has been to this church. And he and I had several talks leading up to me coming here, and he has just been awesome. So after the service, when you see Rudy, now he seems big and he defers compliments a little bit. You know, he's not much on this, but he'll love it. You can hug him, you can fist bump him, whatever, but he will appreciate any love that you can show him when you see him this morning if he doesn't make it in here. So if y'all would give him another round of applause. And just a really cool dude. And I have to tell you, successful churches and successful organizations, if you've ever been fortunate enough to work with one or work for one, they celebrate people. And we need to celebrate Brother Rudy today. As we get started, God is good.
All the time.
And all the time.
God is good.
Amen. The gospel prospers during the good times and the bad. Oftentimes more during the bad times, right? That's when our back's against the wall and we know we need Jesus and we need him right now when our back's against the wall. But you know, today we're going to be, Lord willing, Mark chapter 6. We're going to cover verses 45 through 56, we hope. And then I just kept it simple with a title, He Walks on Water. Sometimes we forget who the master of the world is. And maybe, and I guess when you leave, I hope that you're not thinking, well, preacher, that's just you, because I'm always in tune with who God is, and I'm always loving him like I should, and giving him all the credit that I should, and just taking every breath for Jesus. I got to be honest with you, as a pastor even, it's not really that way. Yeah, I spend a lot of time at the church house, but life goes all kinds of different directions. You know, are any of you from Kentucky? Okay, anybody from Graves County? Okay, good. There ain't none of them people in church anyway. The Graves County, I'm from Marshall County, and Graves County was our arch rival in everything. And I was in 8th grade playing JV baseball. There's 8th graders, 9th graders, maybe some 10th graders on the JV team. And this is how I sometimes go back and God is just working all kinds of little things that don't even seemingly matter together. And only at Graves County would they build a baseball diamond where the sun sets in left center field right at the time that you're playing a high school baseball game once school gets out. But anyway, no animosity against our arch rival 30 years later, right? But I was there in the batter's box, and all of my teammates had been just bailing on this pitcher, Scotty, his just big hooking curveball. And they had been bailing out of the way, and coach was mad, and he was kicking dirt about us being a bunch of sissies and jumping out of the way of the pitch and everything. So I made my mind up, I ain't no sissy. I'm hanging in there, and if the pitch hits me, it just hits me. And so I get up there, and I wasn't good enough to be able to tell what pitch it was by the way that it came out of the pitcher's hand. But once the ball left his hand, I could pick it up and, see if it's a curveball or slider, fastball, things like that. So I'm sitting there, and I can tell just right away it's a curveball. And so I know it's coming at me, but it's going to curve, right? And then all my other friends are jumping out of the way, my teammates. So I'm like, oh, yeah, no, coach ain't calling me no sissy. And it gets in that sun, and I lose it, and sure as the world, smack, right there in my face. If you're ever wondering if your preacher can take a punch, my teammates tell me that I took my bat and I tossed it over towards the dugout, and I just jogged on down to first base about halfway, and then the legs gave, and I was back on my back. I was out, and I woke up so in not middle school, but in JV high school games, usually the pitcher from the varsity game coached first base. And I woke up to a big old boy named Harry Dog slapping me on the face saying, "Pal, pal, wake up, wake up, wake up." And when I came together. But you know what? I'd forgotten about that story, but Friday night I was eating some dinner and I broke a tooth. And I was down in the dumps, pity party. God, I got to preach Sunday. I got a wedding Saturday and tomorrow night. Here with this stupid broken tooth. Blah, blah, blah. But I get a hold of a dentist, and I'm in the chair, and it kind of hits me. Figuratively hits me. It hits me that, when I got hit in the mouth right here with that baseball, I had braces. And, it was jagged. It was awful inside my mouth. But those braces kept it from knocking all my teeth out. And so the inside of my mouth healed. I still have all my teeth, and I was good. So in my pity party, not audibly, but just kind of like just in a sense, God said, big boy, I could have just not let you have braces, and then you wouldn't even have had those teeth to be hurting right now. I tell you that story because you have your own. And when you look back through steps of your life, you can see how the creator of this universe has taken care of you time and time again, and you don't even give him credit for it day in and day out. I was coming into work this morning, and when I pulled into the parking lot, it was early. If you've checked our Facebook account, you might have seen it. It was awesome. It's like God set the rainbow up in the sky, and it was coming straight down into the church house. Check it out. Usually our Facebook posts are a little more professional than the pastor just taking a picture, but today I did what I needed to do. It was awesome to see that. And it was a reminder that, you know what? I told Noah about 6,000 or 7,000 years ago that I'm not going to flood this earth anymore. And guess what? I still haven't done it. And I took care of you yesterday with your tooth. I take care of you when you need a place to stay. I take care of you when you need some food to eat. And I do all these other people. And here you are worried about all these other things except for the thing that matters, and that is that Christ should be at the center of everything. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to recenter our mindsets and our vision on Jesus Christ, because truly, without a doubt, He is who is taking care of you. Now, how does this go into the story of when He walks on water? I'll tell you how. It's because just last week we saw and the apostles witnessed this concept, or this miracle rather, of feeding 5,000 men. Potentially 25,000 people got fed because of 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. What a miracle and what a story. But this will happen to us here at the church at the beach as God continues to bless us if we're not careful, folks. So we better stay humble and we better stay on guard. Because here's what the apostles did. They knew that they were hanging out with the big guy. And everybody was applauding and going crazy. And Jesus was all popular. And even though it wasn't really the purpose or the mission, you know what the apostles were starting to lean towards? Hey, Jesus, why don't you go ahead and why don't you just put everybody under your foot right now and you declare yourself as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, because we're real close to you and we'd love to have the honor. And we can be that way in the church. We can be that way in our families and in our work lives if we're not careful. We forget that really it's because Jesus is taking care of everything that we can not only withstand the good, but we can withstand the bad. And so what Jesus does right here, He says, okay, you are getting a little too hot and heavy into this fame. You're getting a little too prideful. And He says, I think that I've got a plan for how we're going to solve this little humility issue that you are struggling with. If you would, Mark chapter 6, we're going to start with verse 45. We're going to read verse 46 as well. And I challenge you this all the time. We have prayer boards here. We have prayer boards down that hallway. We have prayer meeting at 8:10 a.m. on Thursday mornings. We must pray. Christ was a praying man. He was going to the Father all during His ministry. Verse 45, immediately Jesus made His disciples get into the boat and go before Him to the other side to Bethsaida, while He sent the multitude away. And when He had sent them away, He departed to the mountain to pray. So here's the scene. He's fed the 5,000, and he sees, he knows what's going on. So He gets the apostles in the boat, and He forcefully makes them go away. It's not, hey, why don't y'all just go on over there to Bethsaida? That'd be cool. Jesus understands what's happening. Get out of here. This is not healthy for you. Then we know from John chapter 6, Matthew 14, that He comes back, and He tells all of the other people that were there that He had been speaking to and healing and teaching. He tells them what some of y'all heard in a previous life, and some of you probably still here today. It's at the end of the night when somebody walks out and they say, I'm sorry, boys. I'm not telling you you got to go home, but you can't stay here. That's what Jesus told all those people that He had been just fed a few hours before. And you know that they didn't really believe Him because they kind of go to where they need to go, but then they come back the next day and Jesus and the apostles aren't even there. But back to this story. The people had to go home. He makes them leave. And He goes to pray. There are 3 times in Mark's gospel that undoubtedly Christ prays. He prays after great things and before trials. Therefore, we can definitely take it that Christ was praying all the time. In Mark, right before He chose the apostles, He separated Himself and went to pray. Right before this harsh conflict that's going to start throughout His ministry in the last year of His life with the Jewish elites, He goes to pray, which is right after He feeds all of those people with 5 loaves and 2 fish. And then the evening before, the next afternoon, when He's going to go to the cross and He is going to die that horrible death on the cross for your sin and my sin to be forgiven, He's going to go to the Father and He's going to pray there in the Garden of Gethsemane. 3 times we know for sure good things have happened and bad things are coming, but without a doubt, Jesus is praying all the time. So the apostles still have some lessons to learn By Jesus' actions right here, we know they're not where they should be. Verses 47 through 52, if we're not careful in life, we'll miss the miracles, just like the apostles did. Now when evening came, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone on the land. Then he saw them straining at rowing, for the wind was against them. Now about the fourth watch of the night he came to them, walking on the sea, and would have passed them by. And when they saw him walking on the sea, they supposed it was a ghost, and cried out, for they all saw him and were troubled. But immediately he talked with them and said to them, "Be of good cheer, it is I, do not be afraid." Then Jesus went up into the boat to them, and the wind ceased, and they were greatly amazed in themselves beyond measure, and marveled. For they had not understood about the loaves, because their heart was hardened. Their heart had been hardened because they got off mission, because they loved the attention that they had had. So here's the setting for you. Jesus has pushed them out. He goes up to the mountainside, which would be a great place to find some solitude and to pray. And then it's, if we take this in Roman time, which Mark is writing to the church in Rome, we believe, then we can kind of estimate through this that it was probably about 9 o'clock at night when Jesus comes down and he's praying, and he comes down and he starts to realize, he's God, but he sees them out in the sea struggling. Now, fast forward, it's about 6 in the morning before Jesus actually comes to the boat. Now they're 4 miles out into the lake, so don't let anybody tell you, oh, Jesus was just walking out there, maybe just on the seashore. Get real. No way. It's a miracle. Jesus, he walks on water. But these guys, they had been fighting the waves and fighting the wind for 9 hours. Now, I've gone fishing several times since I've lived here. Now, you can catch some good-sized bass and crappie on Kentucky Lake, but absolutely nothing like what you can catch out in the Gulf of Mexico. You fight a big grouper or a big snapper for a little while, you do that 2 or 3 times, you're exhausted after doing that with that sun beating down on you. You can be like my wife. She was fishing with just a little Christmas tree lure one time, and we were Spanish mackerel fishing, and she caught a ling on that, and took us about 3 hours to land it in the boat. We were both just lying there in the boat, couldn't hardly breathe. We were so tired. These guys were rowing, trying to fight, trying to keep, and about at least 4, if not 7 of them were professional fishermen. They're so scared that they've been fighting the wind and fighting the waves, trying to keep their boat safe for 9 hours. Then they see something and they perceive it to be a ghost or a spirit. It's the same word that we get from a phantom. It's what that they saw they call coming. And so there he is. Now the King James Version doesn't give us a great translation, okay? So if you use that, that's fine. That's good. I use the New King James. It gives a bad translation as well. And it says that it would have passed them by. That's not really what was said. What really was happening is Jesus came and started walking alongside the boat. And you don't get it from Mark's account, but if you get it from Matthew, probably chapter 14, but right in there somewhere, if you get it from Matthew, Peter says, can I walk to you? And Jesus says, come on, boy. Now, Peter's going to get a bad rap, okay, because his faith is going to falter a little bit. But I'm telling you, I've stepped out of a boat several times, and I always just sink right to the bottom. At least Peter had enough faith to get a few steps in. But you know what Jesus did? Jesus did for Peter exactly what he's done for you, and he's going to keep doing for you, ladies and gentlemen. Jesus reached out his hand, and he took Peter's hand. He said, come on now. You've got faith. I got you. It's going to be okay. Keep the faith. Stay strong with me. And Peter ended up being the leader of the apostles later, right? When the church was birthed. But he gets up there, and Jesus' proclamation is, be confident. I'm challenging you today, church, when you're out there in this world, be confident about what God is going to do through you. Don't be willy-nilly. Don't be worrisome. Be confident. And he also makes the claim, he lets them know, hey, it's me, Jesus. I'm right here. It's not necessarily one of the I am statements that's talked about in John next. It's not a claim to deity. It's a claim, I'm Jesus, I'm your friend and your leader. I'm right here with you. And then he gets in the boat. And they'd experienced this before. He gets in the boat and the waves cease. and the winds are calm, and they're amazed, out of their mind. What was it you said this morning, Pastor John? What was the phrase?
Blew my mind.
It blew his mind. Not that he was in the boat, but with Jesus, but he went on vacation. He and Brittany finally got a great long vacation together, and they had a great time, they said. But he tried a honey sriracha chicken donut. And we had been talking about it before they went. They were at Disney's Food and Wine Festival. And I finally, when I saw him this morning first time, I said, so how was the honey sriracha chicken donut? He said, it blew my mind. And I said, well, I'm going to use you as an illustration then during the service. But it blew their mind. They had just witnessed up to 25,000 people get fed off of 5 loaves and 2 fish. And now their mind is blown. See, folks, if we're not careful, we miss the miracles. We miss the miracles because we get so wrapped up in ourselves. We become the center, instead of Christ being the center. Verses 53 through 56. Don't let the temporary cause you to miss the eternal. When they had crossed over, they had come to the land of Gennesaret. Not for sure if that's like a city, maybe it was a small city, or maybe it was like a plain coming off of the lake, but either way it was close to Bethsaida, and anchored there. And when they came out of the boat, immediately the people recognized him, ran through the whole surrounding region, and began to carry about on beds those who were sick to wherever they heard he was. Wherever Jesus entered into villages, cities, or the country, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged him that they might just touch the hem of his garment. And as many as touched him were made well. Jesus had become famous. Everybody knew of Jesus. And probably just about everybody, even in Jerusalem, in the city, knew about Jesus. It probably wasn't just Galilee at this point. And Jesus' love and compassion for these people, just like Jesus has this great love and compassion for you as his people, he healed everyone. Matter of fact, by the time that Jesus ascends back into heaven, you could argue and definitely think from the scriptures that illness, deformity, he had eradicated almost all of that for anyone who would just simply come to him. He healed. But how is this going to transform your life, right? You came to church on Sunday morning. You came for your life to change and to be better. And here's my thing. I think that we are like the apostles, myself included, where we have become the center of our relationship with Christ. And we need freedom from that. We need freedom because we're not the center of everything. Christ is the center of everything. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to find some freedom when you keep him in the center. And you're going to look around, and instead of the hurt tooth or the curveball being separate incidents, you're going to see that they all work together. And then you're going to pray and pray and pray for one person to be saved. And you're going to see that when you pray and a pastor prays and other people's prays, that people's hearts, instead of getting hard like the apostles, hearts are going to get really soft.
Amen.
You know, I started praying about Who's Your One Month, Evangelism Month, several months ago, and my one was saved before the month even started. I can't tell you God's going to do that for you 100%, but I know that he did it for me. He really did it for himself, but you get the point. And when we see it all work out, and it all work out just so beautifully that we never could have planned it all and drawn it up ourselves, we're going to have freedom. Freedom to go tell somebody else about Jesus because we know he is right every time.
The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. his face shine upon you and be gracious to you.